was told a time or another to not speak my language by teachers there, the sisters that were there. They were still practicing the philosophy of assimilation. They were mean to the children, and there was a lot of strapping going on, and having books thrown at us. Some of us rebelled against those types of things, and we usually paid the price with a strap or whatever.
I guess for me specifically, some days it's harder than others, especially when the boarding school movements started picking up traction. It was something that a lot of non-Native students didn't know Native students struggled with, I think. Because of the tuition waiver, sometimes there's some tension between Native students and non-Native students, and this idea that Native students kind of get things for free and were privileged in certain ways. But what comes along with getting the tuition waiver is because of the boarding school history. And that's not something that Native students just, forget about. And they're like, yay, I get free school. I feel like the general lack of education around boarding schools is kind of what motivates people to make comments like that, especially since they don't know that the boarding school is so heavily tied with the treaty of, this legally binding stipulation between the University of Minnesota and the Morris campus specifically, after it was signed over to them, to have the tuition waiver be a thing.
No one was surprised that children had died here, in other words. And if you talk to students or actually any member of a tribal nation, they will say, of course people died at boarding schools. Of course people died here. So we long knew, if you go back to Berta Hearn's 1985 article and the Minnesota History article, he talks about deaths here. There are a few where we just don't know. So the disposition of the remains is left up in the air.
The traumatic things that they've seen is passed on to them. So it becomes intergenerational impacts of boarding school and residential school.
I remember overhearing non-Native students when I was in freshman year say like, oh, they just get things for free. There was this kind of resentment, and it made me feel bad because I didn't know where it was coming from, and especially since it was my first year kind of not being where I was raised, it made me feel, attacked. I was just sad about it. If the university or general education in America did a little bit better of a job educating younger students up into college about Native American history, then we would get less stereotypical answers towards Native students just trying to, get their degree. Me and my friend Dylan, the past summer, because of the boarding school movement that was happening, we thought it would be a good time to push for the school to also search for any remains and, if possible, repatriate them to the appropriate nations. It was mainly made as a campaign, not only just to make demands and kind of be like, you need to do this, why aren't you doing it, and whatnot. But also just so that the school has that there and as a reminder, and that the Native students who attend feel like they have a voice and that their concerns are being met with the school's boarding school history.
I would like people to have that understanding that residential schools were used to assimilate Native people.
I don't know, if it's not broadcasted, then how can you move forward with healing, and how can the survivors and their descendants get some kind of closure if no one ever talks about it, no one ever knows about it, and things just get covered up and they're like, okay, we can move on.
Things happen here, you know, unexplained things happen here. And so we needed to take care of that spirituality, take care of sometimes in what we call lost souls. You know, we have ceremonies like that to send individuals home.
We know that there were children from multiple tribal nations here, and we won't necessarily be able to identify how to send them home. And that will be a complicated process. But I think that what is crucial is that we do this the way that the tribal nations want to do it, and not the way that I might want to do it, or the way that somebody outside of this might want to do it.
We can seek a good life. We call it Mino Bimata Ziwin, which means living a good life. And that's the goal for many of our people. And that's the philosophy that they try and take when they're trying to heal.
It's worth noting there's no connection between the Sisters of Mercy Morris Industrial School for Indians and the University of Minnesota. Other than that, the university's present-day campus in Morris is located on the same grounds as the boarding school was. The school was in operation from 1887 through 1909.